The quarterback is the most important position of football. Today, I'm going to rank my top 32 quarterbacks headed into the 2024 season. If you enjoy this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new. Now, let's get started. Number 32, Bo Nix, Denver Broncos. Nix is a high-floor, limited upside quarterback that's very efficient within a system, but not as efficient outside of it. His average depth of target last season was under 7 yards, and he doesn't have the strongest arm. His stats may look good, but that's mainly because of the system he played in. I think Nix will be decent, but he needs to learn to throw downfield more. Number 31, Aiden O'Connell, Las Vegas Raiders. O'Connell played 11 games in his rookie season and was very solid, throwing for 2,218 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He isn't the most mobile and doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's accurate enough and was very efficient in his last 4 games, throwing 8 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. O'Connell isn't anything special, but he's certainly better than your average backup. Number 30, Jaden Daniels, Washington Commanders. Daniels is already a top 5 rushing quarterback in this league, but he's probably the worst passing quarterback on this list. He has a great deep ball, but his anticipation is below average and he takes a lot of sacks. His pressure to sack ratio over the last 2 seasons were 30.8% in 2022 and 20.2% in 2023. That isn't great, and NFL pass rushers are even more dangerous than college ones. His rookie season might not be great, but if he can clean some of his issues up, he will skyrocket up this list. Number 29, Sam Darnold, Minnesota Vikings. I don't think Sam Darnold is as bad as his stats show. He's been put in some truly awful situations. His head coaches have been Todd Bowles, Adam Gase, and Matt Rule. It doesn't get much worse than that. Still has a pretty strong arm and has good mobility. Darnold definitely isn't a good quarterback, but I don't think he's horrible either. Number 28, Gardner Minshew, Las Vegas Raiders. Minshew might be the most underrated quarterback in the entire NFL. He's the perfect bridge quarterback. He doesn't wow you with any physical traits, but he's smart, mostly accurate, and overall just a solid quarterback. He threw 3,305 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions in 14 games last season with the Colts, and he even made the Pro Bowl. Minshew is very solid, and any team in the entire NFL would love to have this guy in their QB room. Number 27, Derek Carr, New Orleans Saints. I think Carr's a little overrated due to how he finished last season, and I think he's just an okay quarterback. He threw 3,878 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions last season, but take away that final game against the shithole known as the Falcons defense, and those stats suddenly don't look as good. His arm is decent, his accuracy's fine, but he has almost no mobility, and his pocket presence might be the worst on this list. Carr isn't going to win you anything, but he isn't bad enough to give you a top 3 pick either. Again, he's just okay. Number 26, Drake May, New England Patriots. May has all the physical tools needed to be a great quarterback. He's a strong arm, he's big, and he's mobile, but he is raw. His accuracy can be sporadic at times, and he just needs time to develop, which is why he's this low on the list. And the Patriots aren't doing anything to help him. In a few years, I think he'll be much higher on this list, but for now, he sits down to 26. Number 25, Bryce Young, Carolina Panthers. Young's rookie season was an absolute nightmare. The Panthers gave him almost nothing to work with, but he still showed flashes. He only threw 10 interceptions, and he showed some big playability at times. But at the same time, he also didn't do anything to elevate his situation. His accuracy was a little inconsistent, and he eventually just stopped looking downfield and hunting for the big play, which he did so much of at Bama. With a better supporting cast, I think he'll have a good season and rise up this list. Number 24, Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns. Watson has been absolutely horrible for most of his Browns career. He simply doesn't look anywhere close to his former self. He has accuracy issues, he makes bad reads, and overall just isn't good. But at the same time, he has shown flashes of that Texans Watson, and that's what's keeping him at 24 on this list. But he is in danger of tumbling down if he doesn't get his act together. He actively holds his Browns team back from being a true Super Bowl contender. Number 23, Will Levis, Tennessee Titans. Levis showed flashes in his 9 games as a Titan, throwing for 1,808 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Before those touchdowns came against the shithole known as the Falcons defense, so take that game away and his stats are suddenly very mediocre. That doesn't mean they think he's bad. He's just raw. His arm talent is obvious. He can throw the ball 70 yards with the flick of his wrist, but his accuracy is a bit inconsistent, as shown with his 58.4% completion percentage. Levis definitely isn't a bad quarterback, and I think he has the potential to rise up quite high on this list in the future. Number 22, Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. It's not often that a rookie ranks this high on a list, but Caleb Williams is that good. He has all of the tools that are sought after in a quarterback. He's fast, he has a cannon, he's accurate, he has good pocket presence, he can extend the play. His only real knock is that he tries to play hero ball a little too much, but that's understandable when your defense allows 34 points a game, and sometimes he doesn't play within the system, but that can be coached. There really aren't any knocks about him, and the only reason he's this low on the list is because he's a rookie. Yeah, he paints his nails and cries to his mom, but he's a damn good quarterback, and he's gonna show it. Number 21, Anthony Richardson, Indianapolis Colts. Richardson played pretty well in the limited action he got last year. He threw for 577 yards on 84 attempts, along with 3 touchdowns to only 1 interception. He also ran for 136 yards and 4 touchdowns on only 25 attempts. He's big, he's fast, he is a cannon, his accuracy wasn't bad either. It's made knock that he just didn't protect himself well, but overall he showed lots of flashes. I think this is just Richardson's floor though, and in a few years I think he can skyrocket up this list. Number 20, Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh Steelers. Wilson's second season with the Broncos wasn't as bad as the first, but still not great. He threw for 3,070 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. It's obvious they didn't adapt well to Sean Payton's system, and Wilson's signature escapability they used to have isn't as prominent anymore. Wilson is 35 years old and just isn't the same player he used to be. Number 19, Geno Smith, Seattle Seahawks. Smith is the definition definition of an average quarterback. He's not bad at anything, but he's not amazing at anything either. He started off the 2022 season fantastic, but ever since then has been very slowly returning to Jets form. He only threw 20 touchdowns last season despite having a top receiving core, and he's 33 years old. I just don't see anything spectacular about Geno Smith, and while he's good, he certainly isn't great. Number 18, Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mayfield had a career revival last year, throwing for 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. He improved in virtually every way. He still has a strong arm, he made some very good reads, and his pressure to sack rate, which is 8.7%, which is pretty good. He definitely isn't perfect though, as he still showed signs of accuracy issues and had 24 turnover-worthy plays, good for 4th in the league. Mayfield jumped back up into that solid tier of quarterbacks and rightfully earned himself that new contract. Number 17, Tua Tagovailoa, Miami Dolphins. Tua led the NFL in passing yards last year with 4,624. He also only had 36% of his passing yards come after the catch, which is pretty good. However, he did have 14 interceptions last year and went just 1-5 against teams that finished with a winning record, not playing particularly well in those games either. His biggest weakness, however, is his lack of an NFL caliber arm. His longest pass in terms of air yards is just 53.1, and it's often that he will underthrow his speedy receivers. But that's the only big knock on him. He throws with anticipation, which can lead to some bad interceptions, but also some great plays. If he had at least an average arm, then he would be higher, but right now he sits at 17. Number 16, Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals. 2022's ACL tear limited Murray to just 8 games last season, but he played pretty well. He threw for 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, along with 224 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He still showed his elusiveness and rushing capability, and he throws a beautiful deep ball. 3 of the Cardinals' 4 wins from last season came under Murray as well. Murray's a lot better than most people think, and even though I have the Cardinals not having a great season, I still think Murray's going to show why he got that second contract. Number 15, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville Jaguars. It's really weird to see the highest paid quarterback at 15, but that's honestly where I think Lawrence ranks. Lawrence has only been elite for half a season in 2022. Last season, he threw for 4,016 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, and also ended last season on a 5-game losing streak. He has a strong arm, but still makes bad reads, and is pretty consistent with his accuracy. I get why the Jaguars extended him, but it's still a massive overpay for only a slightly above average quarterback. Number 14, Kirk Cousins, Atlanta Falcons. Cousins was on an absolute tear last season before he got injured. In 8 games, he threw for 2,331 yards, which is almost 300 yards per game. He also threw 18 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Some of his best games came without Justin Jefferson as well. His accuracy was great, and he wasn't turnover prone, and his arm was better than I thought it would be. But of course, there is that Achilles tear. Considering Cousins is going to be 36 by the time the season starts, the Achilles tear might have a huge effect on him. He'll be even more of a statue in a pocket than he already is, and his arm strength and velocity is guaranteed to drop. But he still is a very good quarterback, and he's certainly better than Desmond Ridder. Number 13, Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. Some people have Dak Prescott as their 5th quarterback, others have him at 20. I have him right in the middle at 13. He's an above average quarterback, so he goes in an above average spot on my rankings. Yes, he had a phenomenal regular season, but he mostly stat padded against bad teams. The touchdown interception ratio against teams that finished under 500 was 19-3, and against teams that finished above 500, it was 17-6. His record under 500 teams was 8-1, and against over 500 teams was 4-4, and it should have been 3-5 because that Lions game was bullshit. This is what keeps him below the top quarterbacks for me. When it comes to actually playing good teams, he doesn't nearly perform as well. He also is just 2-5 in the playoffs, so that doesn't help him either. Prescott is certainly not a bad quarterback, but he isn't in the same tier as the top guys. Number 12, Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers. Love burst onto the scene in his first year as a starter, throwing for 4,159 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Even more impressive was that in the last 8 games, Love threw for 18 touchdowns to just 1 interception. He also absolutely destroyed a talented Cowboys defense in the wildcard round. It's obvious that Love learned a lot from Aaron Rodgers. Their mechanics are almost identical. They have similar footwork, a similar release, and they both even do the same little hop when throwing off their back foot. They're also so stylistically similar that sometimes I thought I was watching Aaron Rodgers when I was watching Packers games. Love is so talented, and the only reason he's not higher is because we have a very small sample size. But if he repeats the same success he had last season, he will skyrocket up my list. Number 11, Jared Goff, Detroit Lions. I debated putting Love over Goff, but I ultimately decided Goff because Love has only started for 1 season. Goff is a very talented quarterback. He's helped this Lions team from a dumpster fire into a Super Bowl contender in just a few seasons. He threw for 5,575 yards and 30 touchdowns and just 12 interceptions. And he brought the Lions to the NFC Championship game. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's good. He's very accurate, and he had just a 2.5% turnover-worthy play percentage, the lowest of his career. Goff isn't the flashiest, but he's certainly a good quarterback who's capable of taking the Lions far. Number 10, Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles. Hurts didn't have as good of a season as he did last year, and that's why he's dropped down to 10. He threw for 3,858 yards and 23 touchdowns, but he also had 15 interceptions. He did add 605 yards and 15 touchdowns on the ground, but every single one of those rushing touchdowns came from inside the 20-yard line, with most of those being tush pushes. Hurts is still very accurate and has a good arm, but if he has another season like last year's, he will fall down this list. Number 9, Brock Purdy, San Francisco 49ers. Besides Gardner Minshew, Purdy is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Everybody says he's a system quarterback, and while the system around him does help, he still elevates it himself as well. Purdy's not a check-down king, despite what others try to say. He led all starting quarterbacks in air yards per attempt. He led the NFL in PFF passing grade on passes 20 or more yards downfield, and he led the NFL in both 30-plus yard and 40-plus yard passing attempts. He did all this while maintaining under 70% completion percentage and only threw 11 interceptions, with 4 of those coming in one nightmare game versus a very talented Ravens defense. So no, Purdy's not a check-down king, and no, he's not a system quarterback. Does he have a below-average arm? Yes, but the difference between him and someone like Tua is that Purdy makes up for that by not turning the ball over as much, not trying to force deep passes that lead to underthrows, and he actually plays well against teams with winning records. Plus, he made the goddamn Super Bowl, and people still try to say that he's ass. Will he ever be a top 5 quarterback? Probably not, but he's still capable of taking this 49ers team anywhere. Number 8, Matthew Stafford, Los Angeles Rams. Stafford is your prototypical gunslinger. He didn't have the best season last year, throwing for just under 4,000 yards and 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but he spent a good portion of that year without Cooper Kupp. Even at 36, he still has a good arm, and he isn't afraid to put the ball in tight windows. He also helped Puka Nacua break out as a rookie. Yes, he's a grandfather at this point, but he's still very talented and still has a lot left in the tank. Number 7, Aaron Rodgers, New York Jets. Sure, Rodgers only played 4 snaps last season, but he's still a phenomenal quarterback even at 40 years old. He still has the best mechanics the NFL has ever seen. He still has the best release the NFL has ever seen, and he's still one of the smartest the NFL has ever seen. He's not going to be as mobile as he was, but I find no reason that he's going to be worse than he has been the past 2 seasons. Right now, he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL other than Joe Burrow, and he's easily the smartest. Whatever you throw at him, he'll still find a way to beat it. There isn't any reason that a healthy Aaron Rodgers is going to be no less than a great quarterback. Number 6, Justin Herbert, Los Angeles Chargers. Okay, Herbert might actually be the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Barely anybody gives him the recognition he deserves. They just look at his record and say, yep, he's not very good. Those people have obviously not watched this dude play. He's quite possibly the strongest arm in the NFL. He can put the ball anywhere he wants to, whether it's in a non-existent window or 70 yards downfield. He's massive, he can run, he's accurate, he's basically everything you want in a quarterback. His only knock, and I mean his only knock, is that he doesn't have great pocket presence, but a lot of the time he can make up with that by making some ridiculous throw. Herbert is so unbelievably talented, it's insane, and I just hope that eventually the Chargers help him out, because they've done a truly shitty job so far. Number 5, CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. Stroud broke out as a rookie, having a phenomenal season. In 15 games, he threw for 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Yes, as a rookie, Stroud had just a 1% interception rate. That's absolutely insane. He was incredibly accurate. He has a very good arm. He doesn't take many sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over. He checks every box. There isn't much more to say about him. He's just really, really good. And no, I don't think he'll have a sophomore slump. Number 4, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. Allen is an absolute freak of nature. He's massive. He's fast. He's got a cannon. He can play within structure or extend the play. He had 4,306 passing yards and 524 rushing yards, and led the entire NFL in total touchdowns with 44, 15 on the ground and 29 through the air. Allen only has one problem, and that's his interception numbers. He threw 18 last year and averages 13 interceptions a season. He threw at least 1 interception in all but 2 games last year, and that's what keeps him out of the top 3. But more often than not, he will make up for his mistakes with some crazy alien-like plays. He is the reason that the Bills are contenders year in and year out, and he is one of the most valuable players in this league. Number 3, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens. Like it or not, Lamar Jackson won his 2nd MVP last year, and won it for good reason. He threw 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions, along with a league 821 yards and 5 touchdowns. It isn't the best statistical season, but that isn't why he won MVP. He won it because he led the Ravens to a 13-4 record and went 9-3 against teams with winning records. He's a strong arm, and he's the most dynamic rusher the position has ever seen. However, Jackson is just 2-4 in the playoffs, so that keeps him below the top 2 quarterbacks who have both made Super Bowls. But nobody can deny just how talented Lamar is, and that's why he's third on my list. Number 2, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals. Burrow played injured for almost the entire season last year until he tore his ligament in his right wrist. But Burrow is still an elite quarterback. He's the best pocket passer in the NFL right now. He's one of the smartest in the NFL right now, and he's the most accurate in the NFL right now, other than Aaron Rodgers. He can extend the play if he needs to, and he can be a surgeon inside the pocket if he needs to. He can put the ball in any window, no matter how small. And people forget that he's 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. He also made the Super Bowl and might have won it if his offensive line wasn't playing like a bunch of high schoolers. Burrow is the only quarterback in the NFL that's proven he can go toe-to-toe with and beat Patrick Mahomes, and that, combined with everything else I said about him, puts him 2nd on my list. Number 1, Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. This isn't a debate at all. 3 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 NFL MVPs. He's the most passing yards per game in NFL history. He's been to 6 AFC Championship games. He's thrown for over 5,000 yards twice. He's thrown for 50 touchdowns once. He makes some of the most ridiculous throws you will ever see. He has a rocket launcher tapped to his arm. He can escape the pocket. He can stay in the pocket. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Mahomes has already put himself in the GOAT conversation, and there's no debating that he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. But that's it. Those are my top 32 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe if you're new, and that's it for me. See ya.